just gonna go play Laxius Power instead. You know what time it is. It's Rise of the Third Power time. Yeah, this one I thought I'd do something a little bit different. I want to just kind of have a more chilled out video where maybe we can all get some tea. Get your tea and watch some Rise of the Third Power. And just bask in the 2K3 memories. I don't know about you guys, but I always tend to have a really strong memory of these games. Maybe because they came out in like pretty formative years of my life. So I usually have a good memory of the day that they came out, or at least the week, or what, you know, the week that I played them or something like that. So it's kind of a good way to warp back to 2005 or whenever this game came out. Ooh, Gage. Gage is getting a little frisky here. I always liked the introduction to this game. Any story that starts out with kind of a big event that's happening, like the beginning of the Warriors, there's a lot of energy, everybody's going to a big gang meeting. Or the beginning of Battlestar, like the decommissioning ceremony everybody's preparing for. It doesn't really matter what it is, but a kind of huge event in the world that everybody is anticipating and preparing for really gives your introduction a sense of narrative momentum, which is pretty cool, because maybe 90% of RM games start with you getting some milk for Grandpa Jones, and he just bores you to tears, and that's really bad. So Bad Luck also starting off with lots of different perspectives. You don't just stay with the main character, but you see kind of what this event means to like the peasants outside and stuff. It really gives you a sense of the society and the world that this takes place in, with you know, only the first minute of the entire game. You're really getting a feeling for this world and everything. It's very efficient, it's entertaining, it's just really well executed. The record scratch might be a little bit much, but I appreciate the audacity of pulling that gag. Usually royal weddings, for dramatic purposes, the princess has to marry some kind of nefarious dude, but she seems to be pretty into this guy. And who wouldn't be, because he's a pretty hot anime guy. She pulls a Setzer on the princess there. I like how I like how relaxed and casual the characters are about it. The dialogue is pretty entertaining, and they are characterized very quickly. Some old saves, I guess. These must be very old. Ariel is obviously not even scared at all. She's just like trash talking her captors. It's interesting how easygoing they are about it. I mean, obviously they're kidnapping her for some kind of purpose. We don't know yet if it's just for a ransom, like if they're just kind of scumbags, or if there's kind of a more political motive to interrupting this wedding. And maybe a more lighthearted game that didn't really have any serious side. Might just be about some, you know, fun-loving thieves who want to make some cash by kidnapping a princess. But this game's a little deeper than that, which I definitely appreciate. There is a deeper motive, I think. I haven't played this all the way through for many years, but if I remember, there's some cool stuff going on. Yeah, and you get that little hint right there saying that he's actually not interested in a ransom. So interesting little tease that tells you that these characters may be a little bit deeper than you might first assume. I like how Karina doesn't take the bait or have some exaggerated anime reaction. She's just like, yeah, whatever. There's various tutorials here. Yeah, I do like Rise of the Third Power on the whole. It's pretty cool in almost every way, but maybe the first big misstep that it makes is starting with a sewer dungeon. And it's not even that bad of a sewer dungeon. It's definitely no Xenogear sewer, but it's just kind of unfortunate because sewer dungeons are like among the least creative and most generally tedious things that you can do in an RPG. And starting off with one is kind of auspicious beginning. Fortunately, it's not an indicator of quality going forward. The game has some better stuff than sewer dungeons. It's just a little bit of a bad first impression. And especially, I think, later in the game, there are some more inventive ideas for dungeons. I think it would have been really appropriate to start the game off with a dungeon that was set in the city itself, so you would be trying to escape the guards and like jumping over rooftops, and you'd like go in a chimney and come out the front door of a house and kind of twisting through, trying to avoid the guards and fighting your way out. That would have been a really cool and dynamic opening that started the game out with a bang, you know, and really demonstrated the kind of innovation, just a little bit more of a novel experience than a sewer dungeon, but because you know, the best dungeons in RPGs tend to be, you know, you can set them in a city that's under occupation or under attack, like the Dalet mission. That is, you don't think of it as a dungeon because when you think of RPG dungeons, you're always thinking caves or, you know, forests or stuff like that. But Dalet was indeed an RPG dungeon. It's just a really well disguised and kind of narratively interesting one. So always take something like that over a sewer. Fortunately, this one is pretty logically laid out, and it isn't really convoluted and not like a labyrinth like many sewer dungeons are, and just less of a headache to get through. So I appreciate that, at least. I've been kind of misrepresenting the battle system so far because a cool thing that this game has is Warcraft talent trees, at least before they changed them in like 2013 or something. So as I recall, these skills are actually pretty well designed in terms of having a defined function, and you know, each of them being valuable in its own right and having a reason to actually pick it and use it. So that is an excellent first step. It's not like the kind of stuff where you have redundant skills or ones that have unclear uses or just various amateur mistakes that you usually get in RPGs, both indie and professional. So that's pretty cool. You might wonder, why are there Warcraft talents in an RPG Maker game? And the answer to that is that Warcraft is one of the best designed games ever created by humans. So Bad Luck was definitely on top of things by paying attention to its design back in 2005 or something. Usually you don't get that kind of attentiveness to quality anywhere in the game industry. It's funny because game designers, for all that they like to rip off Dark Souls or whatever, they're actually very ahistorical in terms of like design achievements, and they don't really pay attention to the high points in design thought in various aspects of the industry. So you can get like roguelikes from 1993 that just like perfected various design things, and then 500 more people will make roguelikes over the next 20 years, just having completely ignored those innovations. So it's really weird how gamers, for all they tend to be influenced only by other games, tend not to really learn from them. It's actually pretty awesome that Bad Luck recognized the quality design of Warcraft and just decided to put it in a 2K3 game. Of course, I don't mean all the quests where you kill 10 boars or whatever, but I mean the class design and the encounter designs are like top-notch and generally unmatched. So, you know, putting that into 2K3 battles was a really smart move and showed that he was definitely on top of his game. I do appreciate these little key symbols. There are silver, gold, and bronze, I think. And that kind of just gives the dungeon... it gives shape to the dungeon layout and stuff, and it prevents you from having to really wander around wondering what to do, which is especially appreciated in Sewer Dungeon, which can get really, really tedious when you're running back and forth wondering where to go. So it's cool just to have this kind of structure that the colored keys provide. And as I recall, you can use the same key infinite times in the same dungeon. So once you find the silver key, you can open all the silver doors. And the little icons above the doors just make it a little bit easier to remember where everything is, so you don't have to go and examine it and everything. It's just makes the experience of going through the dungeons a lot more smooth and enjoyable. It's just good stuff. Although, if you're remaking Third Power, I would definitely recommend altering the original experience, as blasphemous as that might be, and just make a cool, like, city escape dungeon as the introductory experience to the game, because I still think that would be so much of a cooler opening. I imagine there's probably at least some people who just absolutely hate sewer dungeons and probably enjoyed the intro story scenes, and then they jumped straight into a sewer and the player was like, whatever, I'm just gonna go play Laxius Power instead. And what greater tragedy is there than that? So, you know, the Warcraft talents, they tend to be active moves that you get in battle. They all have like I said, a pretty defined function. So, you know, they are just DBS battles, but they really, realistic armor physics. Yeah, the skills go a long way in giving a kind of simulated rotation type feeling to the DBS combat, and really alleviates the kind of tedium of you just using regular attacks and some sort of garbage move called cross slash or something like that. These are a little bit less well designed than the other two characters, because they seem to all just do straight up flat damage to enemies, and I suppose there's probably some elemental resistances, which is kind of like bad. You guys know all about that, but other than elementals, it's kind of like, I mean, this is single target fire attack that does damage, and this is also single target attack, but this one says high damage, so why wouldn't I pick the one that says high damage over the one that doesn't say high damage? This one ignores defense, so it would be good against like high def monsters, of course, but like you kind of don't know which one to pick because you don't know which kind of monsters you'll be facing. So you kind of just have to pick one at random, and why not pick the one that says high damage? So and then you don't really know like if the second rank is gonna do a lot more damage, and if not, picking that will be a detriment to your like DPS output. As much as that matters in 2K3. I did put it on hard mode, so hopefully there is a challenge. This is kind of just a nice little bit of variety. There's no monsters in this particular room, but it's just a little bit of a different thing to do that indicates that, hey, like he's actually thinking about the dungeons and, you know, creating a little bit of a different experience just for this room, wandering around in the dark corridors. It's nice to have variety in your type of activities in dungeons, not just fighting bad guys all the time, but kind of a not too difficult puzzle or anything like that. It's just something a little bit different to do. Nice that it shows you where it opened, even though it's right here. Got ambushed by Ratman. So I like to do a little bit of experimentation just to see what the damage values are on your special skills. So that was, I believe, 25 and 26 damage from them. So let's just see exactly how strong their skills are. I'm not sure if that was much stronger. That only did 1 more point of damage than his regular attack. I'm not sure if that was just some bad RNG on the damage variation, but that's only 1 more damage, and that's pretty bad. Okay, 22 and 25. Okay, heavy swing. Now, if you're gonna spend like, I believe this is a rage system, so she uses energy, which I think it refills pretty intermittently. The main dude, the warrior, he gains rage as he attacks, so he has to do his regular attacks to generate a resource, which he then uses for regular moves, which it's a pretty simple system, straight out of Warcraft, but it does give a value to the regular attack command as a resource generation move, so it's better than most games where it has no reason to exist at all. I dig these kind of like behind the level geometry pathways that the Chrono Trigger Sewers did. Really exploited for its navigation. You had to kind of go behind some sneaky paths to find the way out of the dungeon, which was cool. Always like that kind of exploitation of the top-down perspective. So this was a little bit weird. I'm not really sure why there's a rat man in the sewers who commands rats, but hey man, I guess they had to be some idea for a boss. So since this is a boss encounter, I'm gonna use the Agi buff. Changing agility for characters tends to behave really weird in 2K3, especially if you try to put it back down after you've raised it. Sometimes it just totally jacks up the ATB. Seems like the mage actually does quite a lot of damage, so I'm just gonna try to get rid of him first. it's kind of funny that there's like this badass rock music for battle against rat guys, against Ratman, but sure, I guess so. Yeah, I didn't really check to see if her ATB was really going faster. I imagine it does, because, you know, why would the skill exist otherwise? But, you know, you can never rely on 2K3 to quite get that kind of stuff right, so... Do some damage testing, though, to see exactly how good these skills are. He just did 20 damage with his move, so... Cost 10 rage and, see how much stronger it is over the regular attack. Of course, there's going to be some damage variation, but it should be significantly stronger. Otherwise, why bother spending 10 of a resource? That only did 25, so that's, you know, only 25% more damage, which I guess long term could add up to, you know, significant DPS increase, but not sure if that kind of thing is really gonna matter unless these bosses are a lot of rounds long. Got a lot of band-aids from just exploring, I guess, so I will be able to survive against this guy for a little while. 24 damage with ignoring defense, so like to try the bleed effect, because 2K3 bleed effects can really tear up bosses, because it'll just do like max percent HP damage and just melt dudes pretty fast. So yeah, the high damage flame move was definitely not misadvertised. Did almost twice as much damage as the defense ignoring move, so guess this boss in particular did not have high magic defense. I really like how you get a new skill point every time you level up. I mean, level ups in RPGs are usually pretty boring. In 2K3 games, I mean, when's the last time you actually noticed that your character is leveled up? So, you know, getting a new move or something every time you level up is just a great way to get the player excited and feel a sense of achievement, or at least some kind of landmark in their character development, other than, you know, you gained 2 defense or something like that, which is completely meaningless. I think I'll just get one of each first, and then I can kind of test the damage, and if the flame one isn't the highest damage against anybody but a high defense guy, then gonna report this game to the game authorities, the game cops. So wait, what? I just beat a boss, but there's a whole bunch of keyed doors and stuff like that, so it would be pretty weird. Okay, this is not the exit. That would have been pretty strange. Just open up more doors. I think it's cool to just put a boss randomly in a kind of ambush, just like pretty close to the beginning of the dungeon. I mean, I just began this and a boss just attacked me, so being unpredictable is cool. The boss doesn't always have to be at the end. There could even be a second boss at the end. Just lots of little fun ideas that shows that Third Power is not boring old RPG ideas. There's always kind of a sense of unpredictability and fun. It's just also really playable. It doesn't feel tedious or in any way. It just feels like, you know, stuff moves along, and there's good little landmarks both in character development and in the dungeon exploration, like finding that key. The battles are pretty quick, but you're still rewarded for using moves in an appropriate fashion, and it's just like, it's not like some sort of Xenosaga Episode 1 mega RPG genius, but it's everything's effective and it moves along quickly, and it's just overall pretty pleasant. And it's funny because just being kind of fun and playable is, you know, that shouldn't be some kind of high achievement in RPG development, but people are just so bad at this that if someone can actually do it, then it's really something to appreciate. See, this is the kind of thing where I would really wish for a secret passage or a treasure or something. Oh, hey, I just found a mapping error. Never mind, this game is fucking garbage. No, I'm just kidding, but I think, yeah, I did this. I put that thing on there, which opened the path to Ratman, and it got me the bronze key. So, yeah, the key system is good. It lets you kind of keep track of your progress through the dungeon. Of course, from having the first of 3 keys, you can probably assume that you're about a third of the way through. Which is also nice because it just signposts how long the dungeon's going to be, so that sense of tedium never sets in. It's like where you start wondering, oh god, how long is this dungeon going to be? Am I going to be in here for hours? And it just kind of makes you want to save your game and quit and go play Laxia's Power, but that does not happen in Third Power, which is cool. Actually really looking forward to the remake of this game, because man, I really wanted this to be finished back in the day, because the story had kind of hooked me by the time the end cliffhanger happened, and I just wanted to see what was next, and I had to wait like 15 years for that, but that's happening, and I also want to see the design improvements, and also you know, what kind of things got changed around and stuff like that. So okay, the lever has a key. The graphic's pretty faint, but it's actually the silver key, I think. It's cool that the main dude's name is Siren. Usually a name reserved for a kind of hot girl character, but Siren may be revealing that he's a little bit of a twink in his spare time, and that's a cool characterization for RPG protagonists. Little bit of a different twist on the traditional hero. New enemies got 3 colored slimes. Got Neapolitan slime squad, except not as good tasting. Well, I can't actually say that for sure, but Rock Wap. See, it's funny, her spell names seem kind of undignified for the kind of character she is. Like, if she learned magic, she probably learned it from like some kind of governess or some kind of high-class aristocratic thing. I would expect something more like, you know, Latin runic incantations or something like that, but her moves are like flame on and stuff. I'm not really sure if that fits the theme, but you know, maybe that's her way of rebelling against her stuffy magic instructors. She calls them spell names, all sorts of silly stuff. And right now I'm inventing new headcanon for 15-year-old RPG Maker game. It's how I like to spend my mornings, 6 a.m. Every RPG likes to kind of invent different names for kind of the same standard items like Phoenix Down and stuff, but I gotta say, Bivy Sack definitely takes the cake as the weirdest name for a tent. So definitely that award goes to Third Power. Maybe that will be a Misao someday, but submit that as a category when this comes out on Steam. Not sure if it'll be eligible though. I generally prefer SPC, but I think I kind of like the choices of music in this game, at least most of them. There's kind of a cool, adventurous feeling that's created by the bombastic orchestral music. Interesting that Karina is the rogue, but Siren's actually doing more damage. Usually you expect the knight to have, you know, defense and sort of tank utility and not as much damage as the pure DPS class. Maybe that's more expressed through their special skills, because her Gouch just did 34 damage, and yeah, Heavy Swing is definitely not much of an improvement over his regular attack. It is about 25%, but you know, you would want to use it over his regular attack, but it's not like it's a big payoff for building up Rage. Cool thing is that even if a character dies in battle, they still get the skill point, so you don't feel like you have to like reset and get the experience again, or you know, kind of amateur stuff like that. Nobody wants to have to do that. You can choose between intelligence buffs or more max MP or more MP regen. I think MP regen would be good, but it's gonna be like quite a few levels before you can get that, and even more if you spread your skill points out, so maybe plan ahead if you really want that MP regen, because mana battery kind of stuff is bad. Mana is usually a bad idea as a resource. In Warcraft, they kind of made it more slowly regenerating energy. Something more of like a challenge, where if you pace your spell casting properly, you won't really run out by the time the encounter ends, which is kind of an interesting test for your ability to efficiently manage your spells, but I don't think that's quite the case in third power, so probably want to go for that MP regen. Dungeons tend to get really tedious when there's minimal indicators of progress and you're just kind of wandering around in circles, kind of wondering what to do, and it's like you're starting to question whether you're even doing anything which advances your cause or not. And the way this is set up not only kind of makes logical geographic sense, because it's kind of in a grid according to the streets above, and you can even see the street names on these little signs, which is a cool detail. So just always feels like there's kind of a methodical, kind of clockwork way that you're taking down the sewer dungeon, which really puts it above a lot of much worse designed experiences in the culverts. So good job on that. Despite the kind of questionable decision of starting your game off with a sewer, it's probably about as good as it could have been. See, I saw this little lever earlier and I couldn't press it, and now I can. It's like the quintessential concept of progress. So you get those little rewards and you feel like you're really getting somewhere in the dungeon. It's just, it's good stuff. And just having played like the 2018 Ultimate Misao winner, totally swept the awards, Lacria Legends, and the dungeon design in that. If I wanted to put it politely, I would say it was absolute garbage. So, you know, it's just nice to see something that's about, 13, 14 years older than that game is, which is completely schooling its dungeon design in every way. So, that's embarrassing, but, like I said, game developers never really pay attention to what came before, or at least they don't draw the correct lessons from it. They usually just are more interested in plagiarizing its most superficial elements, instead of actually kind of analyzing stuff and thinking about really anything at all, and improving the craft and moving it forward, like humans are supposed to do with their kind of intellectual pursuits. But I like these kind of things in dungeons where you, during the course of exploring the dungeon, you see a kind of different track or a different level that you're never really able to access, or maybe you don't even realize that you can get there eventually, and then you kind of go into the lower water levels that you've been seeing all along, and it just feels like you've kind of accessed something a little bit interesting and mysterious. He is not ugly, dude. Oh, that's cool. Karina's bonding with the captive. See, that's an interesting line of dialogue from Siren, because he says, why do I keep getting stuck on missions like this? Implying that this isn't some kind of like operation that just the two of them are running. There's implied to be more of a central command, or maybe they're part of some kind of political action organization or something like that. And they have a boss that's giving orders. So really hinting at kind of there being more to this kidnapping than you might first expect. So cool little pieces of subtle plot intrigue just kind of dropped into the dialogue like that. And I like the visual variety to this dungeon too. Like we've just been in sewers for a little bit, but we've now transitioned into a kind of cave. Could easily have just designed the whole dungeon to take place inside the same tile set, but the visual variety again gives you a feeling of progress, and like your forward momentum is being renewed. It's just nice not to have to kind of trudge through the same visuals for too long a time. I always like dungeons that kind of go in and out of different places, especially indoors and outdoors, like a cave dungeon that goes onto a cliffside or stuff like that, instead of just being in a cave for like 3 hours of dungeon crawling. Of course, I'm not like a really big fan of having to do the same encounter multiple times. There should be variations, because if you've beaten these guys once, I mean, you've already proven to the game that you know how to beat these guys, so like, what's gonna be different next time? The outside of boss encounters, even though I did put the difficulty on hard, it doesn't really seem that the regular enemies don't really do a lot of damage to you, so it's not like these guys are gonna be any more of a threat than they were the first time I fought them, so probably better to just mix it up and make me have to think about something new. I do like how the level ups are pretty consistent, so it's not like you're waiting an extremely long time between new skill points. It's pretty regularly you get to go in and just pick a new move. It doesn't seem like there's gonna be any hidden items or invisible items in the barrels or something like that, so don't have to go around pressing X on every single thing, which that can be bad. It's good if items are very consistently in pots, so that you are fairly assured that you're actually gonna the fruits of your X smashing labors are pretty guaranteed, but if it's very random and inconsistent, then it really, the only thing it does is kind of waste your time. That's interesting. I feel like I didn't explore the entire sewers. It seems like there was some stuff in there that I didn't catch. I didn't really expect to clear the dungeon just now. Perhaps the second most audacious choice of music track, right after the Monkeys song at the beginning of Naufragar. They kind of joked about him living in that little like cave dwelling, but you know, him having a house, maybe he's more highborn or something, or a little more wealthy than we thought he was. Then again, maybe not. So it is kind of cool. It's kind of a nice moment and visually striking to emerge from all this like cave and sewer drudgery and just see this really bright beach scene with birds flying around and stuff like that. So just kind of a nice moment that lets you know that you've moved on to the next chapter of the story. And I think that's going to be the first part of Third Power, and maybe continue this soon. Maybe do my first fully fledged LP series, become a bona fide YouTube scumbag. That's going to be cool, so please look forward to it.